Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Billy F. Wroe, author of Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. Welcome, Billy.
Thank you. Appreciate
it. Yeah, all right. So we're going to have a very interesting conversation today, and the topic will be finding the identity of your passion. All right, so let me give you a little bit more information or a short bio on Billy F. Wroe. He's a native out of Sacramento, California, with over 25 years of experience in retail, recruiting, sales, management, and analytics. As an inspirational speaker and empowerment coach, he has worked with individuals, groups, and companies to help optimize productivity and leadership communication. Over the years, Billy has adopted the leadership concepts inspired by Stephen Covey, John Maxwell, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, and a host of other phenomenal inspirational speakers. His advanced comprehension of emotional intelligence has guided him in creating content that resonates with the heart of the human experience. As a dedicated father of four and a friend, Billy possesses a gift to connect deeply when building rapport by identifying what his audience, not as an expert, but as a compassionate mentor. He embraces vulnerability when sharing both his faults and successes during interactions, rather than telling people what they need to do to achieve their goals. He focuses on guiding them to discover solutions for themselves. That's amazing. I love that that you love all the greats. You know, I love them too. You know, yes. Stephen Covey, John Maxwell, Brian Tracy, Les Brown. You left out Tony Robbins, but
I did, because I'm not going to walk on any fire anytime soon. But I do listen to Tony Robbins as well.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Well, you have a great book. So, you know, before we get into that, can you, how did you develop your passion? Since we're going to be talking about identifying your passion, how did you develop your passion? What's your story?
Oh, my story is one that has been filled with emotion from probably the time I was born. I was really a very emotional child, but I didn't know how to navigate the emotions that I would experience. So a lot of times as a child, I would lash out, throwing temper tantrums, just being stubborn, being hard-headed. Okay. And over the years, as you get older, you kind of learn some tools along the way, but really probably in about my 30s, I started really reflecting on my childhood about kind of like that question we asked, like, what was that all about? And as I reflected on my childhood, I really came to this overarching theme in the experiences that I was having in life. And really I was the child who reached out and said, hey, person who's sitting by yourself, do you want to play? Hey, person who can't stand up for yourself, I'll stand up for you. And the overarching theme became that I really just wanted to help people. But in order to help people, you have to understand people. And in order to understand people, you have to understand yourself. And that's really how I began to discover my own passion.
Yeah. Okay. So, so that's a good story. So you, you know, went back and looked into, did you get in a lot of trouble? Is that the reason why you were reflecting on your childhood?
Yeah, I got into quite a bit of trouble. Probably from K through or preschool through third grade, I got into a lot of trouble. They did find out that I just was in some ways was bored. And so they moved me into advanced classes, which kind of helped burn off some of that energy. But then as I became an adolescent, I found ways to find more trouble, not anything like criminal or anything like that, but just random childhood shenanigans that I got caught up in.
Well, a lot of times kids get in trouble because they're bored. So you're saying that, yeah, you were bored because you were gifted. And you also wanted to help people. So, you know, that's probably why you got in trouble. So I'm assuming that's how you identified your passion, that by looking at what what got you into trouble as a child, and you identify your passion, and you wanted to help people. So bridge the gap about, how it came into leadership, and your book is, fire your job and hire your passion. Connect the job part.
So the leadership part, I've actually been a natural leader, and my oldest son is a natural leader, and both of us in our young years decided to try to buck that concept. Like, I don't want to lead, I don't want to be the person people are following. It's just something that when you have organic leadership, people tend to want to follow it, and you have to learn how to embrace that. But from the job perspective, on how that leadership, from speaking to leaders and helping guide them on how to interact with their teams, to the job aspect of it, really the job is a construct. So when the book says fire your job, it's not specifically meaning go in and quit your job so that you can start working and making money in your passion. What it is about firing the job like mentalities that many of us hold on to, that act as a distraction or a drain to the energy that and the resources that we could divert to our passion. So that's kind of how that transition took place. It was the reluctance to want to be a leader, finally accepting that leadership role, going in and speaking to leaders. And then as a leader, I don't believe in being hypocritical, saying, hey, here's some areas in my life where I'm not happy and I'm not fulfilled, and I need to address this so that I can teach and help other people address this in their lives as well.
Okay, that's good. Yes, because one of my first books that I wrote was a job about a side hustle,
Mhm.
and so when I heard you saying, fire your job, right? I thought that's basically what you were saying, that don't be working for people, find your passion and be an entrepreneur, right?
Mhm. Yes.
But what you're talking about is the mentality, right? Which is
Correct.
basically what this show is all about. It's mindset and your mentality. Because you're right, if you are going to be an employee mindset, right? An
Mhm.
employee mindset is somebody that just wants to go to work and do the bare minimum and don't aspire to become a leader, don't aspire to maybe be a director or, lead the company or whatever. They just have, this is a job, it's a 9 to 5 job. And when I go home, I leave it right here. I don't take anything with me, that kind of thing. And, they're saying that, you need to become a CEO at night, because a CEO obviously takes the work home, and a CEO doesn't leave the job at 5 o'clock. It goes
Right.
with him. So that's
Right.
basically what you're trying to say.
Yes, absolutely. It's you carry you into your job and you carry you home with you. So therefore, if you're truly hiring your passion in your life, you're carrying that passion into your job and you carry that passion home with you. And so yeah, you might leave some of the work that the job requires at the job for work-life balance. However, the identity that you have, and that's really what our passion is tied to, is our identity. The identity that you have, there's no way to separate that from you based on portions of your day.
Mm, true. Right. All right. So yeah, so that's a great segue into my next question, because you say that passion has an identity. So how do we
Yes.
find our identity for a passion?
Oh, okay. So we're going to fast forward to a portion of the book. And in the book, there's a tool that I provide called the Passion Identity Tool. And really what it is, to kind of describe what it is, when I was a kid, I used to read these books that were like choose your own adventure books. And you'd be able to read a certain point, and then it would give you a choice A or choice B. And based on where you went in the book, you would turn to 20 pages in or whatever the book told you to turn for the choice you made. And that's kind of how this passion identity tool works. It really flows through the basics of an activity, and it looks and it sees what the priority level of is what the priority level of the activity is. So the first priority level that it stops you at are the non-negotiable activities, the activities that you have to do. A non-negotiable activity for us would be breathing. We don't have a choice whether or not we want to breathe or not. We require oxygen, so therefore it's non-negotiable that we have to take time to breathe. Fortunately, a lot of the non-negotiable activities in our life, the true non-negotiable activities in our life, are automated. The brain doesn't have to, you don't have to divert resources in order for them to take place. Food, hunger is not necessarily a non-negotiable, but it can become a non-negotiable over time if you don't eat for a long enough period of time. But we move from that non-negotiable to a duty base where really we start looking at our internal and external suffering factors. And those factors, when you're looking at what your duty is, my duty as a father, I have to be present for my children. I have to be a guide for my sons and help them understand how to navigate the adult landscape for when they arrive at their adulthood. And so I'm not going to die.
But that's not a non-negotiable. That's a choice.
Right, that is a choice, but it's the reason why I say it's not non-negotiable, but it's a duty is because if it's not fulfilled, there is suffering that takes place. I suffer and my children suffer.
Right.
And so then once we get through those two core identities or those core activities, we move to passion. And really passion is something that is designed to fulfill us. When we're operating and interacting with our passion, it almost acts like a fusion energy that is constantly replenishing itself as it's being utilized. And so I'm not going to go further into it because there's other parts of this passion identity tool, but those are the first three areas in which I look at the activities that help you begin to align and identify your passion.
All right. So if I'm understanding, so you've got some identities, a tool, a passion tool. So let's walk us through a scenario. Somebody is working, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't know what their passion is. Maybe when they were younger, maybe their passion was to play ball or something, mm-hmm. Right? But now they're, they can't play ball, because what is it? 1% of the people go into the NFL or whatever. So so that's their passion. So right now they're in a job environment. And they don't exactly know what their passion. So they get your book, fire mm-hmm. your job, hire your passion, and they're going through the tool. So what is it that you're trying to, with these activities, what is it that, how are you helping them identify their passion? I understand that if they like something, they go this way. And if they like something else, they go that way. And then at the end of that rainbow kind of thing, it's going to identify what they like. I'm trying to, visualize it or understand the concept. Right. Okay.
So to me, there is a difference between liking to do something and being passionate about it. I like to watch sports on TV, but I'm not overly passionate about it. Okay. And so going back to your concept of, I liked to play ball when I was a kid. Part of that is, what did you like about playing ball? Did you like the team aspect? Did you get like the adrenaline from running? Did you like scoring the touchdown? Did you like the strategy behind it? Because just because you like to play ball as a child doesn't mean that playing ball is your passion. There can be something underlying that's being fulfilled that you haven't yet connected with. And so if it is the strategy aspect, like for me, I love things that surround strategy. So if I like to play ball and I'm like, thinking about how I can maneuver the ball past three players to get a touchdown, I have to be able to break those layers down or peel those layers back to identify that what I'm in love with is strategy, and then figure out how I can bring that strategy, whether it's into my job or into my life, in a manner that it gets the fulfillment, or that I receive the fulfillment that I get from strategy. And so a lot of times people will think that our passion has to align with our job. My passion, my profession is an analyst. I look at data all day long. But I'm not overly passionate about analysis and things like that. But what I am interested in is how things work. And being an analyst allows me to engage with that core engine of who I am, about how things work. I used to take apart toys. Now I take apart numbers. And so it's being able to identify not just the activity, but what that activity is driving within you and what is creating that resonance between you and the activity. Because then you can then take that activity and say, here's how I'm going to apply it to this. Here's how I'm going to apply it to this. I had a conversation with somebody once, and I was telling them how I used to want to be a doctor, wanted to be a pediatrician when I was growing up. And they were like, well, wow, you're writing a book. That's kind of like night and day different. And I was like, no, it's not, because the reason I wanted to be a doctor is because I wanted to help people. And being an author in the space that I'm writing in, it allows me to help people. So because I'm able to identify the actual passion and not be distracted by the activities around it, I'm able to understand that I'm operating within my passion, even though I'm not a pediatrician.
I get that actually. I get that. It's almost like the reason I became a life coach, because I wanted to help people understand that the mind is important to any kind of success. And I've always liked in my past, if I were to go back and say, what did I like? I always like when somebody comes to me and asks me for help with a problem.
Right.
I really, really enjoyed that. And I am a curious person. And that's basically what you are too. If I were to drop down below, you wanted to know how things work and being an analyst, I would say that you're curious. And do you know that I found that you would think that everybody is curious, but there's
Right.
not a lot of people that are curious. They just
don't want to know.
That doesn't concern me.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not curious. So yeah, so I understand what you're saying now. I like that analogy. I was just being facetious when I used the word, playing ball. And I was looking at, someone wanted to play ball because they want to be a millionaire, or they want to be a star, or they want to, whatever. But I know, because my husband likes football, so I'm in the football space a lot. And I know, for instance, when they were talking about Burroughs the other day, when he won, they were talking about him being able to do exactly what you're talking about, strategy. He's not getting, blown away by the bigness of the game. Is
right.
Whether they call it fundamental football,
right? The fundamentals.
Or no, I think they call it situational, which means that for every play, he is strategizing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
it's a custom strategy for each and every play. Yes.
What was that? Yeah.
It's
strategizing for each and every play. So you're right. If you were to go back and ask, a child why they like, ball, the quarterbacks will probably tell you that they like being a quarterback because that's what they like to do. They like to be the strategy, and they want to strategize and make the plays and, have the playbook and that kind of thing. So I'm getting that. So that is basically how that's a good scenario in, identifying your passion. All right. So let's talk about firing the job, because you put them together. Why should we fire the job? And explain that, because like I said, I was thinking when you say fire the job means quit your job. That's not what you're talking. So
right. And I
explain what you meant by fire the job, and why and when we should do it, I should say, not why. When should we fire our job?
When would be immediately. Because the job.
So why then?
the job is the mentality. And so I always share what the first chapter is about. The first chapter in the book, the first job mentality that we look at firing is living beyond our means. And though in the book, I address living beyond our means from the perspective of financially living beyond our means, like putting ourselves in debt, being behind, living check to check, and all those different things, we actually live beyond our means in other areas of our life. We extend ourselves into relationships that we're not quite ready to foster or fulfill. We extend ourselves into sometimes people's problems that we are not equipped to handle. And so the concept is we're firing the job mentality of living beyond our means. And we talk about it financially, but it's so that you can understand it and then apply it broadly across life and stop extending yourself, so that you actually have some time that's given back to you to focus onto your passion, or to allocate to your passion. So when I say fire your job, I'm talking about job mentalities. The way the book is written is I have 4 chapters that deal with what I call the layoffs. And it's really alleviating those job-like mentalities that will inevitably drag us away or lock us into an activity that is not related to our passion. So going back to living beyond our means, if you have bills that are due and you're at a job that you're miserable at, the bills are still going to be due. So you'll make decisions and sacrifices to stay in that job even though you know it's toxic and it's not healthy for you. You'll stay in it. You'll stay in that relationship, even though you know it's toxic and not healthy for you. You'll stay in it because whatever the bill is, whatever the gain is that you need, is that important that you'll stress yourself out and jeopardize your health and your well-being to do so. So that's when I say fire your job, what I mean. And once you get to that aspect of that mindset and that mindscape, once you're there, then you can begin to bring on the behaviors and the foundational and the behaviors that will allow you to hire your passion and truly make that a priority in your life.
All right, well, let's be practical, Mr. Analyst. So
okay.
Let's say, so you've just described like maybe 90% of the population that, that is, hating their job, but they have to stay there because they have bills to pay. So what is your solution? We know that they're not passionate about it. So bridge the gap. I mean, I'm pretty sure you go into it in detail in your book, but just give me the concept.
The concept would be is know your worth. I left a job, so I was an analyst, making decent money, and this is part of the journey of writing this book. I walked away from a job. I had not enough money in savings. I had no opportunity on the table, no offer of employment. So I wasn't 1 foot here, 1 foot there. I literally walked away from a job and went to zero. Now, that's not my advice for everybody, but the reason I can do that and the reason I was able to do that freely with really no fear was because I understood my worth. I knew what my value was in the marketplace. That's the benefit of being an analyst. You know how to analyze numbers and see the value. And it's like, hey, this skill set is valuable. I can market this anywhere. And so I went like a month without a job, but a month later, I had a job. I was making more money. I was in a lower cost of living environment. And since then, my financial stability has skyrocketed past where I was at when I was miserable making good money. So practicality, really what it is about is knowing your worth. Once you understand what your value is, you will not allow yourself to offer it at a discount.
Yeah, that's powerful because a lot of entrepreneurs say exactly that. You've got to. Yeah, so I'm actually glad I asked you the question because now you're talking to a wide population that would stick into, and I'm glad you put it together with a relationship as well, because women, not necessarily men, would stay in a relationship that's toxic because they need help with their bills and stuff like that. And that's a perfect example of not knowing your worth, right? Because you allow somebody to, right. But in a job is the same way. If you know your worth, you go to school, learn something, and then you take back your power. It's another way of saying it. You take back your power, and then when you take back your power, and you take back your confidence, then people are going to hire you because they see it in you, and they love that. Everybody likes somebody that's confident and somebody that if we're going to say know your worth, and that's why. And you can't use fear because fear is what keeps a lot of people in that situation. And you can't use fear to hold you there, right? And so that's actually pretty good. I like that. That's really good advice. All right. Okay, so you also talk about finding your true north and adjusting your frequency so that you can find your true north. So explain what that is.
So the frequency is what I believe we are all transmitting and we're all receiving from one another. I really like your energy. I really like how your thought process is taking place as we're having this conversation. That's the frequency that I'm receiving from you. And my hope is that because I'm transmitting an authentic frequency, how you're receiving my frequency is just as warm. So that's the frequency aspect, but the true north is really about that compass. As you begin to understand what your passion is or the layers of your passion, what happens is you kind of develop this compass and you have a strong sense of when you're headed in the right direction and when you're headed in the wrong direction. I have a YouTube channel that I do YouTube shows on every week. And I once did a show on reparations. That was when reparations was trending. I did this show on reparations, and the level of attention that that show got was like 5,000 views. I was like, oh gosh, like apparently people want to talk about this. But then when I started looking at the comments that were negative, not negative towards me, but just like very negative, coming from a negative space, that frequency didn't resonate with me. So I had to make a choice. Do I want to look at my compass and stay with my passion for growth, inspiration, enlightenment, empowerment? Or do I want the attention that comes with tapping into negative energy? And I said, I don't want the negative energy. I don't want the attention. My compass is telling me the direction that I need to head is a different direction. So I haven't done another show like that because it wasn't where my compass was guiding me to. And at the end of the day, when you get to the end of the book, it's not to tell you, and ta-da, here's your passion, because I'm not a magician. But what it is designed to do is to give you that compass and to give you a couple of breadcrumbs as you reflect on your own experiences throughout the book on why, again, you want to be that football player for strategy or for touchdowns.
Right. Yes. Yeah, well, yes. In the coaching world, I would say that clarity on your goals.
Mm-hmm.
You got to clarify your goals and understand your whys about why you want it. So, and yes, as far as, frequency, yeah, so people pick up on mine, they call it energy, and I'm still baffled by it, that people will, come and, be in my presence for like a minute and say, I love your energy. And I'm thinking, I didn't even do nothing yet. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's a frequency that we all send out. And obviously it's invisible. You don't have to do anything. It's your energy body, your aura, and things like that. So the frequency Correct. Is very important. And the way you keep that up into the positive space is making sure that you don't have a lot of negative energy coming your way, and that you're not soaking it in and soaking in a negative energy, because that affects your frequency as well. Correct. So I'm glad that you were able to, some people will tell you, forget what people say, but I'm glad that you had your North Star pointed firmly, so that you realize that you don't want to be in anything where people are giving you bad feedback, Right. So that's pretty good. All right. So how can we live a passion-driven life?
I think it starts with intentionality. I don't think it's something that happens on an accident. You have to intentionally decide that each and every day that you wake up, you have a yearning and a desire to engage with your passion in some way, shape, or form. Being an analyst, people don't think in the terms that a person who's analytical, very logic driven, would look to venture into a space where they're inspirational. But I do tons of things, even within the operation of my role as an analyst, where I reach out to people and I just encourage them on, hey, use your voice. It's okay. We want to hear what you have to say. Those are the things where it's like, regardless if I'm an analyst or not, I want to live this passion-driven lifestyle. And so I don't turn off that inspiring voice, that leadership voice, that guide, that nurture, that mentoring. I don't turn that off when I'm doing analytical things. I incorporate them into what I'm doing. And that's really where I think when we start off in school and they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they ask you, well, what do you like to do? I think that's where we immediately begin to think that our job is our passion, whatever we're doing, and that has to be our passion. But we don't think, again, going back to, I have my passion with me. When I go to work, I bring that passion with me. When I leave work, I bring that passion with me. So my passion is always with me. So how do I incorporate that intentionally into as many areas of my life that I can possibly incorporate it into?
So that's good. And what I got from that is that you can be doing a job, again, fire the job. You can be doing a job and still have passion with something else. And, people will maybe sometimes go to a 9-to-5 job, and in the afternoon when they leave there, go and do their passion. Or like you're saying, they might be doing some kind of, let's use your scenario, you're an analyst, but you're working with people, and if your
Mhm.
passion is to help people or to mentor them or to support them or whatever, then you can still work with the people that is in your job, and find your passion from there. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
At one point, when I was working in the corporate world, we had a Toastmasters. So people
Mhm.
that were working in the job, and if they had a passion to speak and share or whatever, they joined the Toastmasters. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so yeah, there's and the reason that the job had the Toastmasters, because when you're doing presentations, you can incorporate learning to speak properly in your presentation. So it helps if you're a leader, talking to people. So yeah, so you can incorporate your passion in anything you do. So that's
Absolutely.
great, right? And you can find a way for your passion to come out of you in any environment. I love kids, so I became a foster mom because that's my
Uh-huh.
passion, that kind of thing. So you incorporate it in anything that you do. So
Absolutely.
awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that. All right. So now it's time in the show where you tell us about your book. Fire your job, hire your passion. What do you want readers to walk away with it from after reading, and what made you specifically decide to write it?
So, what I would love to have readers walk away with is almost like a custom experience. It's hearing stories, not just my stories and my experience, but stories from other people as well. And those stories igniting reflection in themselves about their experiences and their journeys and their successes and their failures. Because I feel like that's what inspires belief in the fact that we can truly lead with our passion. And so that's what I would really love to see leaders or readers to leave with, is that level of confidence that, wow, I've gone through some things, whether you're 18 years old or you're 70 years old, I've gone through some things and I've come out stronger because of it. Now I'm going to purposely use that strength. That's what I would like them to come out with. From the perspective of the book, it really is broken down into sections. The first section being the layoffs, removing behaviors that don't serve our passion and operate normally as a distraction to our passion. The second level is the now hiring, the interview section, where we start talking about building foundational things in which we can establish our passion upon. And then there's the now hiring, which is when we start adopting and hiring passion mentalities, things that are really going to help deal with what I perceive as the insecurities / vulnerabilities of exposing something that we care about. I don't know how you were raised, but how I was raised, whatever, if you liked ice cream and you got in trouble, then you couldn't have ice cream. And so what that does is it teaches us that we just don't want to care about a whole lot of things. That way, nobody can ever take it away from us. And what that does is it makes us sensitive to being open to be vulnerable. And so that's for me what the book really is about. It's about helping to break down some of the constructs that we may have founded our truths upon, that we may have developed our compass upon, break those down so that we can truly recalibrate our compass and then operate with a compass that's really pointing us in the direction that is going to lead to a fulfilling life for us.
Okay. And what made you decide to write this specific book? I mean, with this title and this content.
I think it was my journey, spending that time in a position where I was miserable, and dreading going into work, dreading being in traffic, just dreading, really, like 5 days a week. Imagine you only have 7 days a week, and 5 days out of 7, you're dreading the start of that day. Like that's not a life. That's not what we are here for.
Right.
And so understanding that through that reflection and that process, and because I moved out of state when I took a new position, being in a space of isolation you're kind of able to sit a little more quietly with your thoughts and really be able to take them apart to understand why you're making the decisions you have made and what type of decisions you want to make going forward. And so that's really what drove this book, was reflecting on that experience of being miserable, and understanding that in hindsight, though I was making good pay, it wasn't worth the time that I was spending.
Yeah.
And that's an invaluable resource that I am at this point in my life and going forward no longer willing to give freely.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, your book should resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of people don't like their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it and they dread it. And, they're stuck in traffic and they dread it and they hate it. And, they hate Mondays and love Fridays.
Right.
And that whole thing. And they do it because they need money. Right. So
right.
They have to do it. But, I heard something the other day that said that, you gotta live while you're alive.
Right. Exactly.
And that's not living, that's not living at all, right? And a lot of people don't enjoy life. You've got to enjoy life, and that's nothing enjoying it. You made the point. That's 5 days out of 7, so 2 days you're, hopefully you find something that's pleasant to do and enjoyable. But sometimes a lot of people don't even do that with their, their days off. They just live this life that's like a, what you call it? What is that movie? Groundhog Day.
Oh, yes. Every day.
You know what I mean? Awesome. Well, Billy, this was a really good interview. I love, this is new content for me. So I love your spin on, fire your job and hire your passion. And, passion is basically what makes our life worth living. So I absolutely agree that we always need to find something that we're passionate about and do it, even if it's not a job. Even if you can't find it in your job, you can find it in your side hustle, you can find it in extracurricular activities, but we definitely do need to hire our passion. And if we're one of the lucky ones that, our passion is work. I was listening to an interview with Jennifer Aniston the other day, and she was talking, I just left the work. I mean, she's like making millions, you know what I mean? And she just liked the work because she's passionate about it. You know what I mean? We would look in and say, hey, you're making 20 million a movie or something like that. But she just kept saying right through the interview, I just want to work. I just like to work.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you can say that, we started off with a football analogy, Tom Brady, I'm pretty sure it is 22 years in the NFL he doesn't think it's work because it's his passion.
Right.
So if we're one of the lucky ones that we can marry our passion or our job, then that's good. But, what you're saying is that you look for the little nuggets and find your passion in whatever you're doing. And think about, reflect back on your life and what you like to do. And I love the fact that you talked about, why you were getting into trouble as a kid. That's good reflection, it's good reflection. It's good to connect the dots. And that's how you found your passion. So that's awesome. Well, Billy, like I said, it was great having you on the show. We want to thank, our listeners for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. That's basically what I try to do, bring you interviews and with guests every week so that you can get some little nuggets to transform your mind so you can transform your life. And there's no better way to transform your life than, finding your passion, right?
Absolutely.
Find your passion. So any last words before we wrap up?
No, definitely. I appreciated the time with you. If people are looking for me, they can find me on all social media platforms at 1STWROE, which is First Row. And if you're interested in the book, you can go to firstwroe.com. And actually, if you subscribe to the page on the FirstWroe.com, it will give you the access to the first chapter of the book. I tell people I'm an advocate of you should try before you buy. If you like the first chapter, you will love the book. If you do not like the first chapter, do not buy the book, because it's not a quick fix. It's not a one size fits all fix. It's very customized to the reader's experience.
That's awesome. So let me have that website again.
Yes.
And your book can be found. When is your book being released?
It'll be released on February 15th.
Okay.
At that point, it'll be found on pretty much any place
Okay,
where you
all
can
right.
buy books.
So it'll be on Amazon and all the other places. All right. And
Correct.
what's your website?
My website is the number 1 STWROE.com. And right now the book is pre-sale available on that website.
All right, beautiful. All right, well, this interview will air after the 15th. So by the time it airs, your book will be available and on everywhere. Okay, all right.
Yes.
You can also get a link to the book if you miss that website on the show page, which will be blog.myhelps.us. I will also have a transcript of my conversation with Billy on there, with links to his website and also his book. So definitely go check it out. Like he says, he's offering you the first page, the first chapter, so that you can understand his style and basically the introduction to the book. But I think it's a great book if you are, want to move from where you are right now, wherever you're at right now. If you think that you have a job mentality and you don't have passion, then this is a good way to get, like he says, he has an activity for you to try to identify your passion, which is a good thing. So absolutely. Billy, yes, awesome. All right, well, listen, thanks again. And listen, I appreciate you guys, support. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please rate and review so we can reach a wider audience. And thank you again for all of you that subscribe to the show and support it every week. Thank you, Billy, for coming on and telling us about your passion and your book. And I wish you much success. All right?
Absolutely. Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right, guys. All right. Until next time, namaste.